We've started. All right, let's do another one, please. Everybody, Lula, Zayed. All right, now the next one that we're going to do is all right, I'm going to put some chemicals on the board, and you tell me whether or not they dissolve appreciably in water. Okay? Clear? Are you all right with that? Okay. You ready? And why not if they don't? I'll just put them on the board. Why don't you wait, hold your answer, and we'll see. Anything else? Let's see. All right. You all right with that? Okay. What do we got? What do you think about the first one? What is it? Carbon tetrachloride. Yes or no, and why? Yes or no, and why? Yes, no, why? Let's put this one on the board too. Okay. I'll put a check mark next to one that does it appreciably, and an X next to one that doesn't do it appreciably. Okay? So we got carbon tetrachloride. Any guesses? Why? Yes, no, maybe, could be, who cares? Yes, what do you got? Aaron, you're shaking your head like you're having some kind of like episode, medical episode. Should I call a paramedic, or are you all right?
Yeah, it's not soluble.
What's not soluble? Why not?
First one.
Why not? Why isn't carbon tetrachloride soluble? Appreciably.
Yes.
Because Google says so. I see. And if you could use the computer on the test, that would be meaningful. Remember when we did molecular structures? Yes or no? Remember? And we determined whether or not something was polar or non-polar. Remember that? Now that's coming back to haunt you. Carbon tetrachloride, is it polar or non-polar? I'm not going to draw this bond out. I'm not going to go there. You guys have to be able to figure this out. You have 4 equal bonds, right? No excess electrons around the. So what is it? Polar or non-polar? It's going to be non-polar. And what's water? Water's polar. What does a substance have to be to dissolve in water? It has to be polar. Does carbon tetrachloride do it? No. You also have to observe a few solubility rules, so I put a few problems up there based on our experience with what we've done in chemistry so far, but this is definitely not. What about HCl, hydrogen chloride gas? Will that dissolve? Hydrogen chloride is polar or non-polar? It only has one bond, and it's 3.5 or 3, and 2.2, so it's definitely polar. So is it going to dissolve?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Question?
What about ammonia? What about ammonia? Ammonia gas. It's not an element, guys, so I don't know what you're looking at the periodic table for. It's not an element. Ammonia.
No, for HCl, you did the 3.5 minus.
Shall I do this one quick? Remember, it looks like this. Right on the other side, right? So you have this, remember, it's slightly trigonal, pyramidal, right? So is that polar or non-polar? It's polar. So will it dissolve?
Yes.
Yeah, it's one of the most soluble gases that exists. It's very soluble, extremely soluble. So that's going to dissolve. What about, that's called ethane. Non-polar, very non-polar. Dissolve or not dissolve? No. Calcium chloride. Ionic compound, looks like. Calcium chloride, calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate, let me tell you something about carbonate. We're seeing a film on calcium carbonate essentially today. Hopefully we'll get through to it. But it is, yes?
Carbonates are insoluble.
It's extremely insoluble. Can you, you better hope it's insoluble. What happens to little sea creatures?
They die.
Did you ever hear of like mollusks or arthropods? Lobster, crabs? Arthropods are exoskeletons, right? Arthropods, like big giant bugs they look like lobsters, yeah, right? And they have these giant exoskeletons. Mollusks have these giant exoskeletons. A little impressed with my knowledge of biology, I can see that. Will looks slightly stunned, actually.
I don't know anything about
This is, I'm spending my knowledge in like 2 minutes. Don't ever ask me another biology question. This is it, man. I took some graduate courses in invertebrate zoology one summer. Oh, I was never so bored in all my life. Anyway, so not soluble, guys. There are so many things going on inside there. There are so many strong ionic forces going on inside of calcium carbonate that it's rock hard. It just doesn't want to dissolve. Put it in acid and it'll dissolve, but it's not going to dissolve. What about potassium sulfate?
That's soluble.
Yeah, that's soluble. Matter of fact, one of the rules, a lot of the sulfate salts are soluble. That's like, we're going to look at the next chapter, solubility rules, and we're going to see that a lot of the light metal sulfates especially are very soluble. Sodium sulfate, magnesium sulfate. Anybody know what magnesium sulfate is? Anybody ever hear that?
Yes.
Any athletes in here? You ever hear of Epsom salts?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's magnesium sulfate, right?
Magnesium sulfate.
Never heard of it.
You never heard of Epsom salts?
Yeah.
You ever heard of like taking a soak and putting salt in the bath water?
Yeah, you bathe in it.
Yeah, you bathe in it for achy muscles and things.
Bathe in salt.
You bathe in Epsom salts.
I just dump a bunch of ice in it, and then just sit in the ice.
That's okay, that's okay. We have words for people like you. It's called caveman and
Alright.
Neanderthal and things. All right, so what about PBI? Did I say that on tape? Sorry, Dr.
Yes,
Miner.
you did.
Okay, so what about PBI2? Is it soluble or insoluble?
Soluble.
Remember I did the reaction of sodium iodide plus potassium nitrate, lead nitrate? Lead 2 nitrate yields lead 2 iodide plus sodium. Matter of fact, there's a picture on the end of that hallway over there of me holding up the beaker with Hadi is in the picture. Did you see it?
Yes, sir, I did.
The orange, yeah, the yellow.
Yeah, when the kid was in here.
Yeah, the kids were in. What happened? What was that orange yellow stuff?
Passion was up front too.
Yeah.
That's a lead iodide. It precipitates. It's not soluble. A lot of the iodides aren't soluble. The heavy metal iodides, like barium iodide. The lighter ones can be potassium iodide, sodium iodide. Okay, they're soluble. Even most of the nitrates are soluble. So this is, even though it's lead, the nitrates are generally very soluble. Nitrates are soluble. You can write that down. That's important. The iodide, obviously I had to put in sodium iodide and potassium nitrate, so those are both soluble. This isn't brilliantly soluble, but it certainly is soluble. I mean, it's not like potassium nitrate at high temperatures, but, yeah, yes, Will,
For carbon tetrachloride,
yes.
what happens if you do put it in water? Does it just like float you out?
It'll,
Displace.
yeah, you'll see a layering of it, but
It'll just like.
it's hard to see, it's both clear, but yeah, you'll
Like,
see,
mix it up a lot.
it's still not very soluble. I mean, we used to use it like water back in, the 70s to clean our glassware and in a lab. I worked in a carbohydrate chemistry research lab, and we used to use it like it was water, Amazing. Amazing I haven't gotten cancer. Very carcinogenic. Okay. This is not soluble. That forms a precipitate. Have we done them all?
Yeah.
All right, are we done? All right, so that's done. Okay, done? Yeah, good, cool. All right, let's try to do one more and then do the lab.